There was no one else on the street that cold evening but us. We were four friends gathered around a small fire fueled by leftover leaves and palm fronds, shaded by a large balcony overlooking the street. The air was heavy and humid, and the sky was overcast with thick black clouds, occasionally showering us with short rain showers accompanied by lightning and thunder. What were we doing on the street at that hour? I don't know. Youthful frivolity, boredom, and a desire to smoke a cigarette away from our families. Back then, more than 2 decades ago, entertainment options weren't as numerous and varied as they are today. There were no computers, no cell phones, and no NBC satellite channels. The street was the most popular refuge for most boys and young men. Of all the nights we spent on the sidewalk of that street, that one has stuck with me to this day, not only because it was cold, desolate, and frightening, but also because of the nature of the conversation we engaged in during that session. A conversation that reflects the beliefs of a wide segment of the population regarding jinn and haunted houses. Most bathrooms are haunted by jinn, my friend Yasser whispered, looking left and right, as if someone were watching him and monitoring his words. Why the bathroom? I said, surprised, unable to understand why a jinn would choose to reside in the bathroom over the rest of the comfortable rooms and sections of the house. Because the name of God is not mentioned in the bathroom. That's what my grandmother says, Yasser replied, lowering his voice even further, his face taking on an unmistakable, cowardly look. I was greatly amazed by my friend's state of mind. On the one hand, he was the most enthusiastic about stories of jinn, but on the other, he was the most fearful and terrified of us all. You'd see him trembling with fear as he recounted his grandmother's endless tales. Yes, that's true, said our other friend, whose name was Muhammad, confirming Yasser's words. I continued confidently, there's a jinn in every bathroom. Some are good, some are evil. I don't believe that. Do you have any evidence for what you're saying? I said, irritated, feeling deeply disturbed by this conversation, which often caused me terrifying nightmares and made me afraid to sleep alone in my room. I wished I could change the subject, but I didn't want to appear scared and cowardly in front of my friends. Yes, I have proof, Muhammad replied in a tone tinged with defiance, then continued saying, I will tell you a story I witnessed. Years ago, during one of the cold winters, my mother woke up early as usual for the dawn prayer. My mother is a religious woman and has been keen on performing the obligatory prayers on time since she was a young girl. She takes great care to keep the house clean and pure. While she was performing ablution, my mother heard the sound of running water in the bathroom. She was alarmed and thought that one of my brothers had forgotten to leave the water running after washing, and she was about to enter the bathroom to turn off the tap. But she froze in place as soon as she turned on the light in the bathroom. Inside, there was an old woman with hair as white as cotton, wearing a long white dress, holding a broom in her hand, and she was busy cleaning the bathroom with great care. Because my mother is a woman of great faith and fears no one but God, she shouted at that old woman and asked her why she was in our bathroom. The old woman raised her head and turned towards my mother and my mother felt a strange coldness creeping through her body as her eyes met the old woman's. Although her face exuded kindness and reassurance, her eyes were very frightening. They were like cat eyes, and they shone and glowed in a strange way. That's a big mistake. The bathroom shouldn't be next to the restroom, interrupted Muhammad. What's wrong with that? I wondered. Because the bathroom is a place of impurity, and the bathroom is a place where people undress. The combination of impurity and nudity attracts demons and may cause demonic possession. Nonsense, I said, somewhat sharply, and added, objecting, "We share a bathroom and a shower in our apartment, and no demonic possession has ever occurred. Why are you making a big deal out of it?" I didn't say it would inevitably happen. I said it could cause demonic possession. That is, the likelihood of that happening increases when a bathroom is shared with a shower. Mohand responded with some irritability, and a heavy silence fell, finally broken by Yasser, who said, "Let's stop this argument. Please, Zaki. Please finish your uncle's story." Zaki lowered his head for a moment, as if trying to remember the events, then continued, "It hadn't been a short time since my uncle and his family had lived in that house until very strange things started happening. My uncle, his wife, and his young children were all sleeping in a large, spacious room on the ground floor. One night, my uncle woke up terrified to the sound of the door opening by itself and footsteps in the courtyard. He rushed out, thinking that a thief had climbed over the wall to steal from the house, but he was surprised to find the place completely empty. He searched the entire house, but there was no one there. It was strange, and even stranger was the recurrence of the situation on subsequent nights and its gradual escalation. Lights would turn on in the room by themselves, and the television would suddenly turn on without anyone touching it. Often, they would hear someone talking and laughing in a low voice. The sound would come from the bathroom and the toilet. These things usually happened late at night. I seek refuge in God. And this is why I hate old houses, Yasser said in a trembling voice, his face turning pale. Zaki continued, "The strangest thing is that my little cousin, a 3.5-year-old girl, was innocently telling her mother about seeing a strange person entering and exiting from the bathroom at the bottom of the stairs. She said his body was naked, and his feet were shaped strangely, like a hoof, like a goat's feet. But my uncle didn't believe the girl's words and thought she was imagining things." "Oh my God!" Yasser cried, terrified, his entire body trembling at the sudden thunderclap. What was strange was that we didn't laugh at him, as we usually do in such situations. In fact, we were no less terrified and frightened than he was at that moment. Zaki, however, was intoxicated by the impact his words had on us. He said, in a tone filled with confusion and feigned reticence, "Do you want me to finish the story or not? I'm warning you. What's coming is even more terrifying." I wished he would keep quiet, spare us this horror, but Muhammad quickly said, "No, please finish the story, Zaki." Zaki continued, saying, "After a while, something unexpected happened. My uncle started returning home every day at noon. It was not in his habit or nature to leave work and return home at that time of day. The strange thing was that he would leave the house again a little before the children returned from school. My uncle's wife noticed an amazing change in his behavior when he returned early. He would become more gentle and kind. This continued until one day, my uncle had a fight with his wife for some reason. My uncle's wife was a very beautiful woman. During the fight, she said to my uncle, 'Whoever sees you when you return in the evening will not believe that you are the same person who is here at noon.' My uncle was extremely surprised by what she said. He swore that he was not here at noon and that he never returned home before finishing his work in the evening. His wife swore with the most solemn oaths that he used to return home every day at noon and leave before the children returned from school. She called her little girl to witness her words. The girl supported her mother and said with great innocence, 'Yes, Dad used to return every day at noon.' Then she added naively, 'But Dad's foot! At noon, his foot doesn't look like his now, because his foot is more like a goat's foot.' Oh my God!" Yasser shouted again. this time as if he was screaming on behalf of all of us, as the terror gripped us all. Moments of silence and anticipation prevailed before Zaki continued, saying, "My uncle's wife almost fainted when she heard what her little daughter had said, and she swore that she wouldn't stay in that terrifying house for a minute. The truth is, my uncle was also extremely afraid of what was happening, despite his pretense of composure and courage in front of his wife. But that evening, enough had run out, and patience was running out. My uncle and his wife gathered what clothes they could carry and hastily left the house with their children. My uncle only returned to that house of horrors again to gather his furniture and belongings." "What a story," said Muhammad, giving us a thoughtful look. "I think the genie was fascinated by your aunt's wife and fell in love with her. As you say, she's a very beautiful woman. He tricked himself into impersonating your uncle. If it weren't for your little cousin, they would never have discovered him. Children can see things we don't because they're innocent and pure. A genie who loves humans. This is unbelievable," I said, astonished. "Yes, that happens a lot. Jinn men may be fascinated by human women, and jinn women may fall in love with human men," said Muhammad. And Yasser agreed, saying, "That's true. Something similar happened to one of my university-age relatives. Once, she was bathing in the bathroom, standing under the shower with her eyes closed, when she suddenly felt a strange and irresistible urge to open her eyes. She opened them to find a hideous dwarf with a huge head. His face was dark and frightening, and his eyes were red as if they had been set ablaze. From the shock and fear, my relative immediately fainted, and when she regained consciousness, the dwarf had disappeared. From that moment, her family began to notice some sudden changes in her behavior. She became distracted and didn't speak much. She became extremely upset when she heard the Quran being recited, and she would take a shower more than once in the same day. Her family suspected that she was possessed by demons and took her to a sheikh. The sheikh confirmed their suspicions, telling them that a jinn had fallen in love with their daughter. It took possession of her body. The sheikh was unable to expel the genie except with great difficulty, after which the girl returned to her former state. Indeed, such things happen a lot to women and men. And this story is similar to what happened to one of my relatives, Zaki said, preparing to recount a new story. But I interrupted him, shouting, "Enough! Have mercy on us! We don't want to hear any more." I said it with obvious anger, then stood up, leaving my friends without even saying goodbye. I returned home, feeling a deep sense of fear shaking my being. I won't hide from you that I couldn't sleep easily that night, and the fear haunted me for several nights. I couldn't stand being alone in my room, and I developed a strong aversion to using the bathroom. My family took notice, insisting that I wash myself so I wouldn't harm others with my body odor. I was forced to wash myself as quickly as I could, making sure not to close my eyes for a moment. And I didn't even blink when I felt the burning sensation of the soap. After these stories I'd heard, who knows what the bathroom has in store for me? Note, I've never seen a jinn in my life, and I have no desire to see one. Nor I know for certain how true and real the stories I have included in this story are, as I had actually heard them from some of my friends who claimed that they were true. Therefore, the choice to believe or disbelieve these stories is entirely up to you, dear reader.